Dear friends, disciples, and devotees. Today, during this coronavirus time, I'm going to share with you some words of the Divine Mother, written in 1958. It is a long passage, but I'm just doing one section of it today. The human problem. Mother says, it is obvious that what especially characterizes man is this mental capacity of watching himself live. The animal lives spontaneously, automatically, and if it watches itself live, it must be to a very minute and insignificant degree, and that is why it is peaceful and does not worry. Even if an animal is suffering because of an accident or an illness, this suffering is reduced to a minimum by the fact that it does not observe it, does not project it in its consciousness and into the future, does not imagine things about its illness or accident. With man, there has begun this perpetual worrying about what is going to happen. And this worry is the principal, if not the sole cause of his torment. With this objectivizing consciousness, there has begun anxiety, painful imaginations, worry, torment, anticipation of future catastrophes, with the result that most men, and not the least conscious, the most conscious, live in perpetual torment. Man is too conscious to be indifferent. He is not conscious enough to know what will happen. Truly, it could be said without fear of making a mistake that of all earth's creatures, he is the most miserable. The human being is used to being like that because it is an atavistic state which he has inherited from his ancestors. But it is truly a miserable condition. And it is only with this spiritual capacity of rising to a higher level and replacing the animal's unconsciousness by a spiritual superconsciousness that there comes into the being not only the capacity to see the goal of existence and to foresee the culmination of the effort, but also a clear-sighted trust in a higher spiritual power to which one can surrender one's whole being, entrust oneself, give the responsibility for one's life and future, and so abandon all worries. Of course, it is impossible for man to fall back to the level of the animal and lose the consciousness he has acquired. Therefore, for him, there is only one means, one way to get out of this condition he is in, which I call a miserable one, and to emerge into a higher state where worry is replaced by a trusting surrender and the certitude of a luminous culmination. This way is to change the consciousness. Truly speaking, there is no condition more miserable than being responsible for an existence to which one doesn't have the key. That is, of which one doesn't have the threads that can guide and solve the problems. The animal sets itself no problems. It just lives. Its instinct drives it. It relies on a collective consciousness which has an innate knowledge and is higher than itself, but it is automatic, spontaneous. It has no need to will something and make an effort to bring it about. It is quite naturally like that. And as it is not responsible for its life, it does not worry. With man is born the sense of having to depend on himself. And as he does not have the necessary knowledge, the result is a perpetual torment. This torment can come to an end only with the total surrender to a higher consciousness than his own, to which he can totally entrust himself, hand over his worries, and leave the care of guiding his life and organizing everything. How can a problem be solved when one doesn't have the necessary knowledge? And the unfortunate thing is that man believes that he has to resolve all the problems of his life, and he does not have the knowledge needed to do it. That is the source, the origin of all his troubles, that perpetual question, what should I do? Which is followed by another one still more acute. What is going to happen? And at the same time, more or less, the inability to answer. That is why all spiritual disciplines begin with the necessity of surrendering all responsibility and relying on a higher principle. Otherwise, peace is impossible. And yet, consciousness has been given to man so that he can progress, can discover what he doesn't know, develop into what he has not yet become. And so it may be said that there is a higher state than that of an immobile and static peace. It is a trust, total enough for one to keep the will to progress, to preserve the effort for progress, while ridding it of all anxiety, all care for results and consequences. This is one step ahead of the methods which may be called quietist, which are founded on the rejection of all activity and a plunging into an immobility and inner silence, which forsake all life because it has been suddenly felt that without peace, one can't have any inner realization. And quite naturally, one thought that one couldn't have peace so long as one was living in outer conditions, in the state of anxiety in which problems are set and cannot be solved, for one does not have the knowledge to do so. The next step is to face the problem, but with the calm and certitude of an absolute trust in the supreme power, which knows and can make you act. And then, instead of abandoning action, one can act in a higher peace that is strong and dynamic. This is what could be called a new aspect of the divine intervention in life, a new form of intervention of the divine forces in existence. a new aspect of spiritual realization. I have seen pet animals which truly had a sort of inner need to become something other than what they were. I knew dogs which were like that, cats, horses, and even birds like that. The outer form was inevitably what it was, but there was something living and perceptible in the animal which was making an obvious effort to achieve another expression, another form. And every man who has gone beyond the stage of the animal man and become the human man truly has what I might call an incorrigible need to be something other than this thoroughly unsatisfactory semi-animal. Unsatisfactory in its expression, its means of expression, and its means of life. So the problem is this: will this imperious need be effective enough in its aspiration for the form itself, the species, to develop and transform itself? Or will it be only this thing, this imperishable consciousness in the being, which will leave this form when it perishes to enter into a higher form which, besides, as far as we can see now, does not yet exist? And the problem before us is, how will this higher form be created? If we consider the problem, it becomes very interesting. Is it by some process which we have to imagine that this form will gradually transform itself in order to create a new one? Or is it by some other means, a means still unknown to us, that this new form will appear in the world? That is, will there be a continuity, or will there be a sudden appearance of something new? Will there be a progressive transition between what we now are and what our inner spirit aspires to be? Or will there be a break? That is, shall we be obliged to drop this present human form and wait for the appearance of a new form? An appearance, the process of which we do not foresee, and which will have no relation with what we are now. Can we hope that this body, which is our present means of earthly manifestation, will have the possibility of transforming itself progressively into something which will be able to express a higher life? Or will it be necessary to give up this form entirely to enter into another, which does not yet exist on earth? That is the problem. It is a very interesting problem. When this talk was first published, the mother added the following remarks: why not both? Both will be there at the same time. The one does not exclude the other. And then a disciple asks, yes, but will one be transformed into the other? Mother replies, one will be transformed and will be like a rough outline of the other. And the other, the perfect one, will appear when this one comes into being. For both have their beauty and their purpose. Therefore, they will both be there. The mind always tries to choose, but it is not like that. Even all that we can imagine is much less than what will be. Truly speaking, Everyone who has an intense aspiration and an inner certitude will be called upon to realize it. Everywhere, in all the fields, always, eternally, everything will be possible. And everything that is possible, everything will exist at a given moment that will be more or less delayed, but everything will exist. Just as all sorts of possibilities have been found between the animals and man, possibilities which have not remained, so there will be all sorts of possibilities. Each individual will try in his own way, and all this together will help to prepare the future realization. The question might be asked, will the human species be like some species which have disappeared from the earth? Certain species have disappeared from the earth, but not species which have lasted as long as the human species. I don't think so, and certainly not the species which had in them the seed of progress, this possibility of progress. Rather, one has the impression that evolution will follow a curve which will draw closer and closer to a higher species. And maybe everything that is still too close to the lower species will fall away, just as those species have. We always forget that not only is everything possible, everything, even the most contradictory things, but all the possibilities have at least one moment of existence. Written 4th December 1957. Namaste all. And thank you.